It's 10 a.m. Tuesday, August 31st. Here in Seoul, you're tuned into our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Yoon Jung-min, filling in for Kim Mo-gyun. Let's start with the headlines. Putting an end to its 20-year-long war in Afghanistan, the U.S. says it completed its withdrawal from the country just before the midnight deadline of August 31st. During their meeting in Washington, chief nuclear negotiators from South Korea and the U.S. have yet again stressed the need for diplomatic engagement with North Korea. This follows the latest IAEA report that says the regime appears to have restarted operating its Yongbyon nuclear reactor. And South Korea reported over 1,300 new COVID-19 cases on Tuesday. Figures have remained in the four-digit range for almost 2 months. The U.S. has completed its withdrawal of all troops from Afghanistan. For more, we have our Kim Yeon-seung on the line to tell us more. Yeon-seung, what do you have for us?
Jung-min, the Pentagon on Monday said that the U.S. had pulled the last of its forces out of Afghanistan, finally putting an end to their 20-year presence in the country. The deadline for the U.S. troops leaving was today, August 31st. And although many had their doubts about whether it was possible to safely evacuate all Americans and designated Afghans by that date, the U.S. has completed its mission a day earlier than promised. More than 123,000 people, including 6,000 American citizens, have been safely airlifted out of Afghanistan.
This has been a massive military, diplomatic, and humanitarian undertaking, one of the most difficult in our nation's history, and an extraordinary feat of logistics and coordination under some of the most challenging circumstances imaginable.
But the U.S. mission continues. Antony Blinken said that a small number of less than 200 Americans are still in Afghanistan, and the U.S. will work relentlessly to safely evacuate them. The U.S. also continues a diplomatic mission with Afghanistan, but has currently relocated outside of Afghanistan in Qatar.
Well then, Yeon-seung, how are the people in Kabul reacting to this?
Well, first, celebratory shots were fired across Kabul on Monday. The Taliban seemed overjoyed by the U.S. troops' departure. Taliban spokesman Qari Yusuf said during an interview with Al Jazeera that the country had gained complete independence as the U.S. troops had finally pulled out. And another spokesman, Zabidullah Mujahid, tweeted, "Praise and gratitude be to God," after the U.S. troops had left. People were whistling and cheering on roads in Kabul.
During these 20 years, the Americans have done a lot of damage to the Afghan state. What will happen to the Afghan state after this? I appeal to all our political leaders, elders, and young people. Let's take our matters into our own hands.
But very few women were spotted in the celebrations, and it is difficult to know whether this is the dominant opinion among the general civilian population in Kabul. Back to you, Jung-min.
Well, thank you, Yeon-seung, for the updates. South Korea and the U.S. have agreed on the need to swiftly reopen dialogue with North Korea. This vow coming during talks in Washington Monday as the IAEA reported the regime appears to have rebooted its main nuclear complex that the North uses to make nuclear bombs. Our Choi Min-jung reports.
The U.S. Special Envoy for North Korea has expressed his hope for bringing the regime back to the dialogue table. Sung Kim and his South Korean counterpart No Gyu-duk held a meeting in Washington, D.C. on Monday and exchanged ideas and initiatives for the regime's engagement, including the possibility of humanitarian aid.
We also, of course, reaffirmed our shared commitment to pursuing the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula through diplomacy, and I look forward to hearing back from the DPRK.
South Korea's chief nuclear envoy added that the government has continued to keep a close eye on North Korea's nuclear activities.
The government has been monitoring North Korea's activities related to WMDs through cooperation with the U.S.
Both sides agreed that the North Korean nuclear issue is an urgent matter that needs to be resolved through diplomacy and dialogue. The discussions between the U.S. and South Korean senior officials comes after the International Atomic Energy Agency reported that the regime appears to have restarted operations at a plutonium-producing reactor in Yongbyon. The White House also confirmed that it is aware of the matter. Speaking at a press briefing on Monday, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the report released by the UN Nuclear Agency highlights the urgent need for dialogue and diplomacy to achieve complete denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. The Yangban reactor is known to have been inactive from December 2018 until the beginning of July this year, but the IAEA's report says there has been indications of operation since early last month. Choi Min-dong, Arirang News.
We now turn to the COVID-19 situation. Authorities are saying that the Delta variant is responsible for the difficulty in curbing the spread as the country sees almost 2 months of daily 4-digit cases. For more, we have our Kim Do-yeon standing by at the news center. So Do-yeon, Tuesday's numbers are usually lower than later in the week due to slower testing over the weekend.
That's right, Chung-min. But today's number is still a good sign as it was the first time in 2 weeks we've seen a daily caseload under 1,400. The country reported 1,372 cases, of which all but 39 were locally transmitted. This is down 115 from the day before. As you mentioned, Tuesday's numbers are generally lower, but even comparing it to Tuesday of last week, it's around 100 less. But it's too early for the authorities to call it a downward trend considering numbers in the nation's capital, Seoul, continue to rise. On the other hand, the vaccination campaign is picking up speed as nearly 30% of those eligible in the nation have been fully vaccinated. As of now, the goal is to reach 50% in a month, and it seems to be on track for that target. South Korean pharmaceutical company SK Bioscience has entered the final phase of the clinical trial for its COVID-19 vaccine candidate. The South Korean drug maker is the first in the country to reach the last stage. Peunji reports.
South Korean pharmaceutical company SK Bioscience said on Monday that it has begun the third phase of the clinical trial for its COVID-19 vaccine candidate. This comes nearly 3 weeks after the country's drug ministry approved a final stage trial. The vaccine, which was co-developed with the Institute for Protein Design at the University of Washington, has become South Korea's first homegrown vaccine candidate to enter the final phase. The company said it will conduct trials to around 4,000 adults in 14 medical facilities in Korea and some other facilities overseas. Conducting the trials in other countries will begin as soon as next month, and to that end, SK Bioscience has partnered with the International Vaccine Institute based in Seoul. The experimental vaccine is formulated with British drug maker GSK's vaccine adjuvant, which is designed to boost the immune response. During the clinical trial, it will be given in 2 doses, 28 days apart. Because it can be stored at between 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, the company says it will be easy to transport and to store for up to long periods. Within the first half of next year, the drug maker aims to produce an interim report before seeking final approval. It also aims to achieve WHO pre-qualification and emergency use authorization in other countries, so that it becomes available worldwide. Peunji, Arirang News.
On Monday, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, a major advisory panel for the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, unanimously endorsed the full approval of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine for Americans aged 16 and older. The backing by the panel comes a week after the U.S. FDA granted the vaccine full approval. While the endorsement is not binding for the agency, its director, Rochelle Walensky, is expected to accept the panel's endorsement shortly. The agency hopes that the step will convince more people to get inoculated as the vaccination campaign in the U.S. has slowed due to safety concerns among some of the population. The number of critically ill COVID-19 patients in Japan have been hitting record highs for 18 straight days. Japan's health ministry on Monday reported 2,075 seriously ill patients, including those on ventilators and those in ICUs. On Monday, Japan reported 13,638 new infections. This brings this week's total to almost 151,000 cases, more than 5% down from the previous week's tally, but still a major concern. Visitors from the U.S. traveling to Europe will likely face stricter virus prevention measures from now on, and that could include more testing and quarantine upon arrival. Israel, Kosovo, Lebanon, Montenegro, and North Macedonia have also been taken off. The point of the list is to try to unify the rules across the European Union, but individual countries are allowed to have their own rules. For example, Germany and Belgium already made tests and quarantine mandatory for the US, while France considers the country safe. The decision by the bloc comes as cases have been surging in the US due to the Delta variant. In fact, according to the New York Times, the daily average number of hospitalizations due to COVID-19 in the last 7 days topped 100,000. Similar numbers were previously seen last winter when vaccines were not widely in use and are up 500% from 2 months ago. That said, the medical infrastructure in the country, especially in the southern states, is reportedly having a hard time keeping up with the number of patients.
Amid the fourth wave of the pandemic, South Korea's industrial output and consumption both dropped in July for the first time in 2 months. Data released by Statistics Korea on Tuesday shows that industrial output edged down 0.5% last month compared to June. The fall in output was mainly due to a drop in automobile production and face-to-face services, including restaurants, accommodation, and leisure activities. Consumption also fell by about 0.6% amid social distancing measures, with clothing and cars seeing large drops. Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi posted on his social media that although the effect of the fourth wave has been inevitable, the amount of decrease has slowed compared to previous waves of the outbreak. Details have been released about who in South Korea can get the latest round of pandemic relief funds for the public. These are payments of about $215 per person. They will be disbursed from September 6th with the aim of getting them all sent out before the Chuseok holiday in mid to late September. Our Kim Sung-min has the details.
The South Korean government will start handing out another round of COVID-19 relief funds to the bottom 80% income bracket from September 6th.
We will carry out the plan fast and accurately to alleviate people's difficulties as soon as possible.
Each eligible person will get 250,000 Korean won, or around $215. Health insurance premiums, which are levied based on individuals' income and property owned for the month of June, will be used to determine who's eligible for the payments. For example, for a single-income household with 2 family members, if they had paid a total of 200,000 Korean won or less for the premiums, then both members are eligible. While the payments will be given to South Korean nationals, foreigners who are registered as living with a Korean national and who have national health insurance can also receive the fund. People can find out if they can get the payments and apply for them from September 6th online at credit card or health insurance corporation websites and mobile apps. But they can only apply on designated days during the first week based on the last digit of their birth date. For example, 1 and 6 on Monday. The payments will be given a day after the application. Recipients could choose to get the fund either through their credit card or debit card, as a local gift certificate, or as a prepaid card. Applications will run until October 29th, and the payments can be spent until December 31st. Places where funds can be spent include most small neighborhood businesses like traditional markets, local supermarkets and restaurants, and franchise convenience stores or cafes. But the funds can't be spent at department stores, malls, large supermarket chains, and chain stores. Details can be found on the government website. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
The world's largest e-commerce retailer, Amazon, has launched online services in South Korea. Amazon Global Store, partnered with Korean e-commerce company 11 Street, is now open both online and via smartphone. Due to language and service issues, Korean consumers haven't had easy access to cross-border shopping. But now people in South Korea will be able to pay in Korean won and receive their orders within 6 to 10 days. Currently, Amazon has global services in 12 other countries. South Korea is providing $1.2 million in aid to African countries. The UN World Food Program says Seoul's foreign ministry has decided to give funds to Nigeria, South Sudan, Madagascar, Burkina Faso, and Ethiopia. The WFP Regional Director for Southern Africa said the number of people on the verge of starvation is likely to double in October. South Korea's fund will help boost humanitarian efforts for vulnerable communities in those 5 countries. South Korea has been developing a lunar orbiter as part of its space program. Thanks to NASA, it's been rigged up with a cutting-edge camera that will enable the orbiter to see the darkest parts of the moon's surface. Our Ji-young has more.
South Korea's lunar exploration program has kicked it up a notch with the help of NASA. The country's science ministry said Monday that Korea's lunar orbiter due to launch next August was recently equipped with a state-of-the-art piece of technology, the Shadowcam, developed by NASA. NASA's Shadowcam is an ultra-precise camera that can capture even the darkest parts of the moon's surface, like craters.
We've never been to the moon before, so the cooperation of the U.S. is crucial. They're pioneers in that field. With the Shadowcam, we can acquire additional data that we couldn't get on our own.
NASA provided the Shadowcam for free as part of the U.S.-led Artemis Accord, which has been signed by 12 countries agreeing to pool their resources to help each other explore space.
The U.S. has already sent a man to the moon under the name Apollo. Now they're resending astronauts under the name Artemis, which is the goddess of the moon.
NASA started the Artemis program in 2017, and South Korea joined this May. Under the program, although some technical issues could delay it, NASA aims to send astronauts to the moon by 2024 and to build a manned lunar base by 2028. The data collected by South Korea's orbiter and the Shadowcam will help NASA and the country's own scientists in reaching their goals. And if this orbiter succeeds along with other planned space goals, South Korea may no longer need help to explore the moon.
If we succeed in launching the newly space rocket this October, we can expect to launch and land a lunar spaceship in 2030 using only our own technology.
So for South Korea, a latecomer to space exploration, this is only the beginning. Ji-young, Arirang News.
South Korean footballer Igan has signed with Spanish club Real Mallorca on a free transfer after being released by his former side Valencia. Real Mallorca confirmed Monday that it handed Lee a 4-year contract. The 20-year-old joins a team that was just promoted to La Liga last season. Lee joined Valencia's youth academy at the age of 10 and made his first team debut at just 17 years old. China has hit out at the U.S. as 3 Chinese students were prevented from entering the country at a U.S. airport. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin addressed the issue during a regular press conference on Monday, saying that 3 Chinese students were interrogated upon entry at Texas Houston Airport. After questioning, they were repatriated to China under the suspicion of being funded by the Chinese government or having a military background. Wang said the action was based on far-fetched pretexts and called it historical backpedaling. He also noted that this move seriously infringes upon the students' legitimate rights to study and runs against the U.S. ideals of openness and freedom, and urged the U.S. to redress the mistake.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. We start things off in the U.S., where after pounding parts of Louisiana and Mississippi, Hurricane Ida weakened to a tropical storm overnight. More than 1 million people were left without electricity on Monday, including the entire city of New Orleans, while 1 death was attributed to the storm. However, with brick buildings in downtown New Orleans completely reduced to rubble, and flooding from the storm continuing throughout the day, authorities expect the death toll to rise. Local authorities also say that many people are still stranded by the flooding, with rescue work on hold due to unsafe conditions. Speaking to the press on Monday, Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards said the storm made land and packed a very powerful punch adding that the state has mobilized search and rescue operations to recover survivors stranded by floodwater. The state governor added that the levees performed extremely well against the storm, but at the end of the day, the storm surge, the rain, the wind, all had a devastating impact across the southeastern regions. Over to the French capital, where a 30-km/h speed limit has come into force across Paris. The latest measure comes as the city aims to cut accidents while reducing noise and pollution. 2/3 of the city had already been subject to the speed limit before Monday's change, while several key routes will remain exempt. These include the Champs-Élysées at 50 km/h and the Boulevard Périphérique at 70 km/h. Along with the speed limit, the number of street parking bays is being halved, while most vehicles are expected to be banned from the city center by next year. The number of bicycle lanes has been increased, while streets are being redesigned to make districts more pedestrian-friendly. The measures are a part of several policies that have been proposed by City Mayor Anne Hidalgo, who wants a greener city as Paris prepares to host the Olympic Games in 2024. And finally, back over to the U.S., where rap star Kanye West claimed his label, Universal Music Group, released his much-delayed 10th studio album without approval. The allegation comes shortly after his album, titled Donda, was released on streaming services on Sunday. West also claims that his label had blocked a song featuring DaBaby and Marilyn Manson from being included in the album. The two artists' involvement in the album caused controversy, as Manson is currently facing multiple allegations of sexual abuse, while DaBaby was recently criticized over a string of homophobic remarks at a music festival last month. The album was named after his mother, Donda West, whose death after complications from cosmetic surgery at the age of 58 had a devastating impact on the rapper. 이승재, Arirang News.
Good morning. August was a month marked by plenty of rain, and we wrap up a month on a wet note as well. Rain clouds that formed in the west have already started to drop rain on central regions and the Gyeongsang-do provinces this morning. And those of us in central regions will be seeing torrential showers from this afternoon through Wednesday morning. And the Chungcheong-do provinces could see more than 250 millimeters, dropping 50 to 70 millimeters an hour. So please be extremely careful while driving. Your vehicle's reaction time is much slower when it's raining. Well, rain will also bring some relief from the heat to the central areas, so Seoul will be going up to just 24 degrees Celsius this afternoon, while southern regions will be remaining hot. So parts of Jeju and Gyeongsang Namdo province are still on the heat wave advisories, and Jeju will be going up to 31 degrees, Gwangju at 30 degrees this afternoon. On and off heavy rain will continue through Thursday, and southern regions could see more rain through Friday. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for now. Thanks for watching. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Goodbye.